Ladies and gentlemen, it is currently January 30th, 2011, and this is Day 9 Daily number 250. What's that song you hear? Oh, I made this song. I have the rights to this song. That's right. That's right, motherfuckers. It's my song. Wait, check it out. Just listen to it. Just rock out. Oh, yeah, I made those noises. Yeah. Alright, hold on. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. This song, I actually made. I programmed every single sound you hear. Nothing was sampled. Except for one noise. Nothing was sampled. Listen to this. Oh, that's not a person going, oh. I made that. Listen to it. Yeah. Oh, yes. Hold on, we're just going to rock out for a moment. It breaks it down in just a moment. Hold on. That's right. That's right. Check it out. Check it out. That thump, I made that thump. It's my thump. Just check it out. Here comes the good part. Here comes the good part. Oh, and here comes... Oh, that's so awesome. Man, that's the coolest. I actually wanted to tell you about that before we actually go into the Day 9 Daily where you learn to be a better gamer. I stumbled across the song because it's on my playlist because I'm vain. But that was made in one of my absolute favorite courses I've ever taken in my life at Harvey Mudd, which is called Intro to Computer Music. Because as you know, I listen to a ton of electronica. I really love it. I love weird sounding timbres and noises, and then them being arranged in a way that actually sounds musically cool. So in that class, we learned all sorts of great, wonderful stuff, and you know, it was emphasizing the learning to make the cool noise part, and less of the, like, you know, not... It wasn't like a music theory class, it was a noise sculpting class. But, you know, to give the class some sort of narrative structure at least, everything we did was a song. We had to make a piece, I guess, because there's no music. And our professor was the man! Dude, Prof. Alves, that guy, like, was so encouraging. No matter what absolute tinny garbage you churned out, most of the songs sounded like a chicken vomiting up nails. It was horrible. And it was so good because in this class, we'd have our piece due the next day. And it was a Mac-only program that we had to use. So me and all the kids who would get together would sit in the Mac lab till 5 in the morning trying to program our god-awful songs. And we would spend 10 minutes, or excuse me, oh, I messed that up, like 5 hours on the first 10 seconds of the song, right? And that would sound awesome. We'd be like, yeah. And then we realized it was 5 in the morning, so we'd be like, all right, cut, paste, cut, paste, cut, paste. Drool. Yeah, so like on my song, yeah, see, I started to get tired and bored, and you're gonna see there comes a point where I just, oh yeah, like, here's the part where I just cut and paste, and you're just gonna hear the beat go crazy. Get ready. Cutting and pasting. Yeah, that's right. That's what we do. That's a cut and paste, baby. Yes. And so eventually we turn in these things that just sounded awful. It sounded like a bunch of drunk zombies driving police cars through a junkyard. It was absolutely terrible, this kind of music. And the best part of all, the greatest thing known to man, I was telling this story before, and I'm not going to be able to not laugh, because it's so awesome. We had a final concert in this class where the professor sent out emails to the whole school, to like all the nearby schools, with like posters put up, and like, oh man, no one wanted their song played. Nobody wanted their song played. I spent like probably 40, 50 hours on that song, right? It took me forever because I didn't want to be publicly shamed, right? That's exactly what I didn't want to have happen. So I did that. And everyone else just kind of like walked in, head down, it's like turning the CD. Like some people were just like, I'm not giving you a CD, professor. We're not playing my song at the concert, right? So I, of course, like to embrace this sort of environment. So I told all my friends, I was like, guys, bring everyone you know, bring their girlfriends and their parents, bring everyone. So it's this large auditorium. It seats like 500 people. And our class is 16 people, and they're all just like peppered around, just sort of like shamefully sitting in their own domain there. Except for me, and I have 2 rows filled up, right? With like all my friends. They're like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. And I had to bring them all together and say, guys, I want you to know that, you know, Harvey Mudd, one of the hardest schools in America, huge, hardcore, for any of you who don't know, it's like really hardcore engineering technical school. That's where I got my math degree. Yeah. And it was like finals week, so everyone's just like, okay, I gotta make sure I can get my engineering, you know, finals done instead of this song. So I was like, guys, you know, it might be of not optimal quality. So right at the start, the professor points to some kid. He's like, Brian, we're starting with you. And Brian's like, all right. He just like didn't want it to happen, but he's like, okay. She's like, tell us a little bit about your song. And this is what he does. He's sitting right in front. And he goes, I don't know. As he threw his hands up and just buried his head. He was like, I don't know. I can't. And teacher's like, well, tell us what you did. And he said, so I took this song called, like, you know, the March to Mars or something like that. It was some symphonic piece. That's what I remember. And what he did was he took the song and he broke it down into just, like, the mathematical breakdown of the song. And then he tweaked all the numbers and recompiled it back into a song. Cool, right? Except that what it did is it replaced every noise with a loud, harsh pop of static. So the normal song would be like, bum, ba bum, and it would change to, right? It was horrible. It hurt my ears. So it like starts off, and like everyone in my row is like, get ready. Song one. Song one delivered, my friends. It was just like, and it was 13 and a half minutes long. Oh my god, every part of my body hurt from laughing. I was like shaking, and it was downhill from there, man. That thing came out of the gate with a bang and delivered. It was the greatest concert of my entire life. That is honestly one of my fondest memories known to man. That was like so incredible, and I just had to share that. And of course, Day 9 got a song out of the whole deal. That's right, out of the whole deal, he got one. And I was like, oh man, it was the greatest. I loved it. It was so cool. So today, let's see. Oh cool, we've been going for about 6 minutes now. That's no problem at all. 6 minutes of time, plenty to go into the loveliness that is the Zerg versus Zerg topic of today. So I wanted to experiment around with a little bit of cool Zerg versus Zerg stuffs because of the fact that it's one of those matchups that people love to use as the poster child for imbalance, right? People, it's a dumb game. It's just Zergling baneling, and if he gets more banelings than me, then blah, and they freak out and they cry and they create threads and all this sort of stuff. But I'm of the opinion that that is not true, right? So much of Starcraft is not your list of counters. It is timing. So, for instance, here's a way to think about counters as my chair continues to squeak incredibly loudly. It's going to be doing that. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. Stop stressing. Stop stressing. Don't worry about it. We're just going to go on with the daily. It's not something you need to be that concerned about. So here's an example. So a lot of Marines are out on the field, and people are like, oh, banelings are good at killing Marines. Interesting. Fantastic. Right? People love to just go, all right, well, I see Marines, therefore I make banelings. However, so much more is all about timing. It's all about, I need banelings right now, even though I can't even see what he's doing because a bunch of Marines could come out. That is the way to think. So, for instance, people are in particular losing quite a bit to this very standard Zergling speed directly into baneling. So, this is the first thing that I want to do before we even look at one of these high-level Zerg vs. Zergs. This is something that you should do at home. You should try to always establish at what time these scary things happen. So this is a little exercise that we've done before. Let's go ahead and go to single player. Let's play against the AI. What's a map that I want to do it on? Okay, well, Zelnaga Caverns is a pretty typical point, or pretty typical map. Once the map list loads, this is a pretty typical point in time to do that sort, or to have this sort of Zergling baneling thing get set up. It's a pretty wide open space. I don't want to have any challenge at all. We're going to go ahead and make the game speed faster. You should do this with yourself a lot. Alright, here we go. Oh, I forgot it wasn't a replay. I was like, why did my drones not split themselves? Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and send this little overlord up there. I don't really care. I mean, ordinarily I send it here, but what we're actually going to look for is the timing. Because I'm in commentator mode, you're seeing me do a lot of things like click on portraits to center. I never do that in a real game. I would just be like 5-5, but you know what? We're going to do it nice and easy. You're going to see me click on the drones. Don't click on the portrait for the drones. Don't do that. Do not click on the portraits for the drones. SD all day. So good. So let's go ahead and just try to do a pretty standard sort of Ling Baneling style. I always like to do Overlord on 10 and an Extractor trick, or a double Extractor trick and then an Overlord, largely because of my want to be different. A lot of people do the Overlord on 9. I want to just be cool, so I'm going to go ahead and do the Extractor trick. It's not going to have that big of an effect. Overlord, you go here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be going for a 14 gas, a 14 pool, and I'm going to get Zergling speed, and I'm going to get some Banelings. What I'm doing right now is I'm trying to get a benchmark for when things can end up happening in a real game. Because, again, I really want to emphasize so much that it's all about timing, right? It's all about timing, not about anything such as, you know, counterless and all that good stuff. I'm going to briefly pause because my encoder is giving me a weird error. Is it okay? Is it working? Just want to make sure from my admins that everything's okay. And I'm sure Marky will tell me if anything's detonating in Skype. But anyways, here's the usual standard typical sort of build, right? This sort of play, where we get our gas first and we get our spawning pool. This is something you'll scout a lot in Zerg vs. Zerg. We see this gas guys are going down. We see the spawning pool coming a little while later. A 15 Overlord is pretty typical for any of you looking to steal / copy this build. Alright, this is fine. This is absolutely fine. So what'll happen is, for you, you'll be in the game and you'll go, oh my gosh, Banelings are coming, right? Oh, Banelings. And the worst thing in the world happens in many circumstances. A person will say to himself, oh my gosh, I need to prepare for those Banelings, I don't want to die, and he'll never consider the timing of it. So right now, I just did the usual thing. I got my Zergling speed up, I got my Queen out, and I made Zerglings. I have 3 sets of Zerglings coming out right now. It actually would have popped up a little bit sooner, but I was busy talking and didn't make a drone on time. So it's a little bit delayed, but no big deal. And then you'll note I have just enough money for a Baneling nest. Alright, go Zerglings. Rallying up here. My Queen is en route. And it's so important that you look at this thing right here. This ain't a real game, right? I'm not that concerned about anything. I'm not that concerned about getting this absolutely perfect. I'm concerned about the time. Making sure that things come out at a smooth pace. And then I can get some sort of benchmark. So here come my Zerglings getting ready to wall off. Pretty typical, pretty typical. Alright, cool. Again, what I'm doing is I'm just trying to get a sense of when a Baneling nest would ordinarily finish. Okay, so there it's done. So I'm morphing my Banelings. Alright, don't crash on me, Starcraft. Good, fantastic. This is pretty typical timing. Coming out quite quickly. Larva just popped off. Want to add a couple more. And, oh, what do we know? At almost 5... I just hit P as though it was a replay. At the exact 5-minute mark, that is when I end up seeing some Banelings. Alright, that is a really simple test that you can do. I was talking during it, I was clicking on the portraits, I wasn't using my hotkeys. I mean, I forgot to build a drone, so there's a larva sitting around for a while and I built it, but you know what? It's about on time, it's about standard. No big deal. No big deal at all, right? Everything seems fine and well in the world. So now we have a baseline timing. So let's watch this next Zerg vs. Zerg with that timing in mind. And here it is. Yes. Now, I ordinarily always want to label my games as player A versus player B, like Demaga versus White Raw, but it was like NEXLife versus this guy. And I wanted to say Gogol because that's the first thing that popped into my head when I saw it. And also Nikolai Gogol wrote this amazing short story called The Nose. Oh gosh, what a great story. It's about a guy who wakes up and he can't find his nose. But no one really seems to notice or care that he's lost his nose. And in fact, when he meets his nose is actually in a higher position in society than he is. It's just like so totally awesome. So anyways, we have NEXLife spawning in the top right corner. What happened when I saw this game is NEXLife is going to do something that kind of gave me one of those, ooh, that's good moments. And that was not it, with the drone just sort of hanging out doing nothing. He's going to go ahead and... looks like, oh, we might be doing some sort of very early pool. Oh, goodness, what could that be all about? Okay. In the meantime, we see Gogol, who is getting, he's doing a good little thing. He's getting his Overlord. He hasn't done any sort of extractor trick. There is the set of drones coming out. That's great. So ordinarily when someone would see NEXLife doing this, they would go, oh, he's cheesing, he's a cheeser, and they'd freak out and all this jazz. But notice, we have our Zerg player, Gogol, who's going for the extractor. I am going to call him Gogol for the whole game. The blue player, Gogol, damn it. Gogol's getting his extractor right now, and what we should generally see is a pool getting thrown down on 13, allowing him to get those Zerglings up relatively fast. But yeah, there's the pool coming down. So NEXLife gets his hatch done, or excuse me, his pool done, and here comes a queen. This is something very, very cool. This is an extremely early queen. Some Zerglings coming out right now, but queen, queen, queen. I'm even hitting the button myself. There, the queen ends up coming down. So cool. This is a little bit of what people would say is a cheese build or a rush build. But what I want to emphasize to you is I want to peel away this idea of a cheese. Let's actually not use the word cheesy in a serious way. It's fun to be like, oh, is he cheesing? Oh, he's a cheeser! Right? That's fun. But we want to learn, right? So I'm going to use the following definitions. An all-in play is generally what people would consider a cheese. An all-in is a strategy that suddenly stops having a next step. If you take all of your drones and your workers and your Zerglings and you bring them to attack, you have zero economy. You have no next step. You have no next step, right? Therefore, it's an all-in. If you are 25 minutes into the game and you have a max Thor army and you bring all your SCVs and your Thors to attack, that's an all-in-ish thing to do. It's not about the time at which you do it. It's not about the mix. It's about the fact that there's no next step. So, with that definition in mind, when I look at this, a lot of people will hear that and go, well, it's kind of an all-in strategy because you're trying to win. Well, it's actually deceptively not a all-in at all. It's actually deceptively stable, and we're going to see some very, very cool things play out of it. I'm actually going to look at this opening, and then I'm actually going to end up rewinding, and we're going to start thinking about the game a little bit more. But the big thing that I want to do just once right at the start, is I want to relate this game to that idea of timing that we had earlier. Look at this, queen's going to finish, and there's another frickin' queen coming out. That is so weird. Now, a whole bunch of actions happening at that bottom half of the map, but look at this. Two queens make their way to the front. Wow! At 4 minutes and 30 seconds, two queens are now blocking the front of this base. Based upon our timing, we know that at the 5-minute mark, banelings and Zerglings would make an attempt to break the front. But we clearly have queens here in time. Now, anytime you sit down and you say something like, maybe I can get some spine crawlers and drones to defend, or maybe I could get some Zerglings. I mean, the Zerglings seem like they'd be done in time, and the spine crawlers seem like they'd be done in time, and I see how both would be good. I just don't know. Anytime you get to that point where you're like, I'm not really sure, that immediately means it's going to be timing. It's timing. It's all about timing. So, for instance, this Zerg player, NEXLife, probably said to himself, maybe I can get two queens to the ramp in time. Maybe if I did like a 9 pool, I could get two queens out fast enough to block the ramp. I mean, having two queens block the ramp seems like a reasonable plan, doesn't it? It sounds reasonable to me. It should sound reasonable to you. All right, cool. Now let's test it and look at our times. Let's look at our timing of it. And this is a thing that I want you to just kind of note a lot. I know a lot of you watch replays for recreational purposes, or like me, you'll watch the GSL or the Go for SC2 Cups or the Zotac Cups. You'll check those out and you'll see a little timer in the corner. Just start as a little exercise to yourself, a little reminder. You'll see, oh my goodness, looks like I've seen this guy move out with Blue Flame Hellions around the 8-minute mark. Oh, okay, cool. Now that you know that, you can always go back whenever you see a game, you hit the 8-minute mark when you're playing, and you're like, okay, now I'm suddenly worried about Blue Flame Hellions. And then once you hit the 9-minute mark, you can be like, you know what, the window where he generally would have pushed me with the Blue Flame Hellions, it's kind of gone now, so I'm not that worried about it anymore. Timing is the important, not some sort of counter list, not some sort of, oh yeah, if he's going Baneling, then you go ahead and you make queens to block your ramp. No, you can't say, oh, are you going Baneling? Well, let me rewind back in time and 9 pool so I can have two queens in time. Timing. So we're going to pull back to the start really fast. So this is the thing that immediately intrigued me in this game. It was the 2 queen block happening right at the start of the game. And this is an example of the kind of problem solving that takes a lot of time for players to sort out. Because initially people will play around with Zergling Baneling, they will try to fiddle around with building, positioning, maybe responding by getting some roaches a little earlier and this sort of thing. It'll take a long time for them to come up with entire build orders and styles revolving around really, really, really well thought out timing. So you saw me obsess about the queen thing. So this is a very natural thing to happen in play, where, say, for instance, you're a Zerg player and you think to yourself, man, those banelings are really, really annoying. Maybe I can get 2 queens in time to block it. So you 9-pool, exactly as we saw NEXLife do. And then you get the 2 queens in time. Good. What else can you do? And this is something that can happen very naturally. In a sense, this build order by NEXLife could have, been birthed from a number of different motivations. It could have been NEXLife saying, let me fiddle around with 9-pooling and see what happens. And then after fiddling with 9-pooling, he thought to himself, oh yeah, and 2 queens seems like the most reasonable way to block my ramp against banelings. Or he could have said, I really want 2 queens to block against banelings. What can I do now with a whole bunch of Zerglings up early? And as we see, this pool was not late at all. Not late in the slightest. And interestingly, we're seeing this Zerg player able to do a good bit of damage. Let's see how much damage he does. He ends up picking off 1, 2, 3. Looks like I counted 3 drones. Was that right? We can always go back and check. I do this quite a bit with early game things. I rewind and then I count, because you want a very good sense of the sort of expectations you can have. Because sometimes your opponent will actually not whip around and attack, and you won't do that much damage. But that surrounds pretty good by blue, and I see 1, 2, 3 drones getting picked off. There's another one that's a little bit weak that perhaps he could pick off. But in production, we immediately note that our good friend, our wonderful friend NEXLife, is already producing a good amount of drones, and in fact, in the unit counting station, has a couple more drones than Blue. Blue actually is feeling a little split, because he ordinarily would feel obligated to make Zerglings at this point in time. So, it's kind of a tough position to be in as our Blue player. And immediately, when I got to this point, I got quite excited, right? Because what we're also seeing here is, suddenly, NEXLife jumps very far ahead in economy because his queen was so early, so he gets to do the vomit so early. I really like that. I like that a lot. And he has 2 queens. Now, I'm going to pause here again at the 4-minute and 12-second mark. And you know what? A lot has gone on right now. A lot has gone on. And there was a daily a while back. I can't remember which number it was. Hopefully in the comments to this video, or in the live chat if you're watching it live, people will remember the number, where I talk about the difference between a build and an overall strategy and a plan, and then an opening. Your overall strategy and plan and overarching stuff, like in this particular circumstance, you might be a Zerg player who says, I want to have a big Roach Hydra army. I want to be expanding a lot and playing very defensively. And I'm going to use a lot of infestors to manage any sort of counterattacks or something like that. Your overall plan could be something like, I'm going to expand to opposite sides of the map and only make Mutalisks and Zerglings and Corruptors and harass my Zerg opponent a lot. That is a strategy and a plan that you can begin unfolding once you're in a good setup. But the opening is what sets you up for that. The opening is different from that. So, for instance, in this opening, we want to ask ourselves, what is a reasonable... We want to think about the ways that this strategy could play out, and the ways that it could flow into the later stages of the game. And you want to have those later stages always planned out first. Now, I know some of you are going to steal NEXLife's build, NEXLife's 9-pool opening, and that's fine. That's totally fine to see an opening and go, ooh, I got the shivers, and then to try to figure out a way to play it. But before you even sit down to play it, I want you to think it through. So for me, when I see this opening, I'm thinking, okay, if we opened in a way that got these Zerglings and these Queens out really fast, I'm a little low on gas, so I'm not comfortable with a lot of Speedling or Baneling things, but I'm pretty comfortable with Roaches. That seems pretty good. So you know what? I like a Roach expand build with this. And if he does any sort of funky teching, I'm just going to rely back on my Queens. Like if he gets Mutalisks, I'm going to rely back on my Queens. So I'm feeling kind of like this Roach Queenish mix. And then I'm going to dump into my big Hydra Roach mid-game where I'm expanding around a lot. I'll probably get my Infestors when I'm on 3 bases. Sean, why did you say Infestors on 3 bases? I have no clue. I just kind of wanted Infestors. So I declared an arbitrary time. That's fine to do. That is an amazingly strong way to get a good sense of whether you're right or wrong. Like for me, I would say something like, I'll get my Infestors on 3 bases. Let's just give it a shot. Let's try it out. Let's see how that works out. And then what happens is, whoa, did I need those bad boys earlier? And then I realize right when my layer finishes is actually when I need to be getting that infestation pit. Or right when I'm at 60 food is the exact time I need that infestation pit. I can begin figuring out where to plant that stake in my garden of strategy, right? You at least want to have a starting point. So the best way to find a starting point is to just pick one at random. So I'm feeling that this would transition into a big Roach Hydra mix well, and that the way I'm going to step there is by expanding here pretty fast and getting some Roaches. Expanding here pretty fast and getting some Roaches. Now, you heard me talk about all that definition of an all-in build at the early stages and all that good jazz. Actually, I'll back up just a moment. You heard me talk, about this, this 9 pool with all these Zerglings that went down to here. That's not an all-in. I would call this a very big pressure build. You immediately make your opponent feel, ugh, and a little bit under the gun. And what happens is it limits his decisions. So, I would love it if the live chat folks would think, how were the decisions limited as a result of that 9 pool? And I don't even want to consider right now the fact that the 2 queens could have blocked that ramp. Those 2 queens could have blocked that ramp. Again, we're ignoring the overall strategy for just a moment. We're thinking, what does this opening do? How does it pressure our opponent? What did it limit him in? How did it limit him? So I'm going to go ahead and look at the chat to see these sorts of things. How did it limit him? I do not want people to note the fact that a Baneling bust will get blocked by... Baneling Nest will get blocked by those 2 queens, because that's later down the road, because Blue doesn't actually know that. Gogol has no idea that the 2 queens will be there. He just knows what he's felt. Let's see. Here's some things that were stated. DD the Schmay is saying things like it denies scouting. That's true, but I don't think that's of as large concern, because a lot of people are going to be going speed Zerglings and Banelings anyways, and the speed Zerglings kind of reveal what the opponent has. The opponent has to bring all their stuff to the front to defend, so in a sense, it's nothing that you wouldn't really find out anyways. People are saying less workers. That's true. That's something that happened, but I want to think about what will end up happening as a result. Chelsea312 says he can't tech. And, see, there's a lot of things that people are saying. What are some other things? Kingly Commander, he can't fast expand. Holomorph says it limits the first attack. This is all good. This is all great, great, great stuff. One thing that I want to note about this, a good way to state all this, is that all those are true. All those are true. It's going to be harder for him to tech. It's going to be harder for him to attack. It's going to be harder for him to make drones. The way I want to word that, though, is that Gogol can really only commit to one thing. What's great about like a 14 pool, or excuse me, 14 gas, 14 pool, is that you have 15 drones in that strategy. That's a lot of drones to allow you flexibility to expand or to do more stuff as you're continuing to make Zerglings and Banelings. You have variety, you have more options. In this circumstance, Gogol can either go all in, or he can go back to making drones and completely sacrifice any ability to make pressure. Or he can tech and completely sacrifice any ability to have any units or that many upgrades at all. He immediately has a sharp commitment to one lane. So if I am in NEXLife's shoes, I'm going to think to myself, okay, sure, he can go right back to Zergling Baneling, but if he does that, I know he's all in, because he only has 12 drones. If he does tech, I know that he is not going to be having any ability to put pressure on me, because he could only either make drones or make Zerglings in an extreme fashion. And people are typing "or" in caps lock. Or! Yes, very... Oh, I love you, Day 9, says "or" in all caps. Thank you. I love you, Day 9. I love you, Day 9, too. Anyways, moving right back to the game. So we're going to see a severe limitation. See, here's the point where Zerg... Look at this. Zerg's making drones, and he's making a Baneling nest, and he has 6 Zerglings. And there's these queens at the ramp. Ugh, right? Ugh, that's not something that's so good. right? This is not looking good. And I think at this point, Gogol's realizing, yeah, I can't do it. I gotta cancel. I'm done. I'm donesies. So now we have a hatch popping out, or excuse me, a layer popping up. So it looks like we're going to see our Zerg buddy go down the tech route, and you're almost kind of noticing, look how low his money is. He's having a little bit of trouble doing that constant production, a little bit of trouble, but most definitely he cannot afford an expansion. Most definitely he cannot afford any Zerglings. So everything I've just said is opening related. What NEXLife did puts pressure and restricts what our opponent did. If for some reason we saw NEXLife get to the front, get to this part of the base and didn't really kill off any drones, it would not nearly be as restricted as before. So it looks like we're going to see our Zerg buddy try to poke up in there. Nope, not going to happen. Sorry, thank you for playing. Drones actually do a good job. Look at the unit counting station. We see that there are a good amount of drones now popping out for our red buddy. He's doing great in terms of the drone count. And hey, look, here's our expansion coming up as well. Still doing a good amount of blocking. Still pulling that back. Look at that timing. Oh, that's just good mechanics. And there's the Expo going down. So I want you to again note the idea of linking up this opening to an overarching strategy. You know what? Expanding and getting roaches, that's a great thing to do in general. I love going roach expand in Zerg vs. Zerg. I do it in a completely different way. I actually get my layer up. You saw that day. I think it was 235 that I did this, where I just showed a build that I love doing in Zerg vs. Zerg. I get my layer up, I get like roach speed, I can get some Mutalisk out, and then I expand. And then I go right back into that usual roach hydra thing that you see everyone do. Because that strategy can stay the same. I can just swap the openings out like they're Jenga blocks. Yeah, I just have to make sure it doesn't tumble. So we're starting to see NEXLife opening dump really well into his mid game, and of course the creep tumors are spreading out. Now we're seeing Gogol go for Mutalisk at this point in time. Could potentially be a little bit threatening. There is a spine crawler going down there as well. Here comes some roaches, doing a good job of that. Not too many roaches. Getting enough to block entrances to constrict space. 3 roaches here to block, and then 4 roaches or so. Maybe 3 roaches and a queen to protect the hatchery from mass ling stuff. But you know who's really not worried about mass ling? This Overlord, because he's keeping an eye on his opponent. This is the most important part for an Overlord on the whole map. Look at NEXLife vision. All he needs to do is needs to be, you know, bouncing here. I mean, if we just even go to his hotkey setup, he just needs to be going to his hatch, this queen, this queen. I mean, again, notice that I'm clicking on his hotkeys right here. And I love hotkeying one of these Overlords and just being like, you know, 0-0, check you, okay. And then 4-4, 3-3, 5-5, you know, check my Zerglings, go back to the hatch, check the Zerglings. And then 0-0, bam. Okay, cool, come back, move a drone to my minerals, bam, come right back. Okay, readjust these roaches. Bam, come right back. And I'm continuing to watch the one thing that could really make me push in a wrong direction. And then look again. NEXLife appears... Oops, let me go to everyone can. There we go. NEXLife appears to have just blindly gotten a 3rd queen. Completely and totally blindly. What does he see his opponent doing? What does he see his opponent doing? What does he see his opponent doing? He got this 3rd queen a long time ago. He started a long time ago. We're actually going to back up. We're going to back up a little bit. All right, and it all comes down to the idea of our opening relating to our build. All right, so I'm going to hold this down. I'm going to hold this down. So what was NEXLife's opening? That is hard to say. Oh, that's hard to say. What is NEXLife's opening? It is this very early Zergling pressure build that allows him to get a queen really early. What did that force our opponent to do? Big all-in, or teching up really hard, or droning and powering and getting his economy back on foot. It's one of those 3 in a very sharp split fashion, right? Very, very, very sharply split. That sort of thing means that this is actually quite key. NEXLife is getting a lot of information by seeing nothing from this. By seeing nothing from here, by seeing nothing, he knows that he can immediately cross off that worry of mass lings. What are the other 2 things that are left? Big economy play or big tech play? So he's going to get a queen. He's probably going to make some more drones. That's so intuitive. That sounds so obvious. Everyone in the chat, I know, is just like, okay, well, if he's not attacking, then obviously he only needs to worry about, like, Mutalisks or something coming out, or just being out-droned. That sounds obvious, but the problem is that people don't take this moment to investigate themselves why this sort of thing is happening. Let's actually look at NEXLife and see what he ends up producing. I mean, it looks like he has an Overlord coming. I would not be surprised to see more drones come up very, very soon. We actually see a lot of roaches coming out, which does bug me a little bit. But again, by not seeing an expansion here, he has a very good sense of how restricted his opponent is. Perhaps what NEXLife is doing is he is saying, okay, I haven't seen a huge attack, so he could, or excuse me, I haven't seen an expansion, so he could be hiding a huge attack, or he could be teching. It's, again, so important to note what you just do not see. There's the extra queen coming out, and actually that's fewer roaches than I thought. I actually take it back. I actually miscount. I thought he was getting like 15 roaches, but yeah, no, he only has this many, 10. This is a reasonable amount, considering that speed Zerglings can overrun roaches relatively easily if they're caught off guard, especially with how fast they are. So what we're seeing is a lot of drones going to be made by NEXLife. He's getting his own lair, and he now has these queens, and look at how well this opening links with the mid-game, right? It's starting to get there. It hasn't quite linked in to the overarching strategy that we may see NEXLife do, or may not. We still don't know if he's going to be going Mutaling, or if he's going to be going Roachling, or if he's going to be going Roach Hydra. But you know what we do know? We're seeing this look fairly impenetrable, right? Oh, hey, the Queen's blocking the ramp still. Guess we don't really need to worry about the Banelings early. Roach is coming out to help us get the expand up. That's good. And in particular, I love the fact that there are 3 Queens out to help deal with any sort of fast Mutalisk action. That's very, very, very easy to be able to manage. And hey, the fact that we even got that second queen so we could join this together with creep, this is very subtle. You would not notice this in a replay, but I can tell you in a game you feel when you can't join these 2 bases together with creep. You feel total inability to get these queens to defend the way that you want them to. And in the meantime, look at red. Making drones, making queens, teching up, getting Evo Chamber, obviously for these Spore Crawlers, but also to be able to get upgrades at some point. Hey, look, here's the Roach speed. We're starting to see it get to where our strategy wants to be, our overall plan is. At this point, this is generally still opening stuff. And if we even go to the resource counting station, we can see that red is a little ways ahead of his blue opponent. We can also see not quite as many drones out yet for our player, for our red player, but that's fine because he's been making a lot of roaches and a lot of queens, and the person who's really under pressure is Gogol because he has absolutely no units. Back in production, we see, Hydral's Den popping out. Yeah, look, NEXLife finally getting to his mid-game setup. Alright, cool, and no doubt, once he starts getting sufficient gas, he'll be getting, like, more plus upgrades. That's fantastic. That's so cool. That's so cool. But I want to point out something once again. Before this game started, I did a really explicit example of timing. I played through the first 5 minutes of a game just to see when we got Banelings out, if we were doing something kind of usual. Oh, great, it's at the 5-minute mark, so I can now say something like, if he has his ramp blocked at 5 minutes and 30 seconds, it's too late. If it's blocked at 4 minutes and 30 seconds, it's early. Good, great, great, great. We saw this third queen pop out at kind of a seemingly arbitrary time. It didn't really like line up. Like if your first queen finishes and you immediately build a second queen, that's kind of an easy autopilot. But suddenly there was this mysterious time where NEXLife just said, "Time to make a queen." It's because he knew his timings well, right? That's really, really important. Very, very, very important. And per usual, the queens will go back and kill that overlord and be like, yeah. So in the meantime, we see blue doing a pretty honestly very, very, very ordinary transition, which is to harass with Mutalisks. And notice that this is not a lot of Mutalisks, it's 5. And while Zerg does that, Zerg's like, oh my god, I better get drones out, and once I do, I'm gonna go roach speed. That's the greatest. Man, that sentence had a lot of emotions outpouring from it. Yeah, usual harassment. We're seeing, we're seeing red make drones and hydras, still in a little bit of a defensive mindset, but we're seeing our blue Zerg player really start to say, geez, I gotta defend this as soon as possible. I gotta defend this inevitable scary push as best I can. So we do see blue pulling back right now. Here comes a whole bunch of roaches. Now, I want to note something while these roaches are swinging around. All right, great, roaches are cool. This food differential is significant. I'm a little disappointed to see Zerg's money that high. Oh, look at the trust fund Blue has. Yeah, nice. Just for the record, 10 roaches would be 20 food, and he can afford 10 roaches, which would put him at 103 food, which would basically, in my eyes, I would state that blue and red are pretty even. Pretty even. Not really even. I think that red is still a little bit ahead, but pretty even. Why did I note that? Why did I note that? Why did I note all that math? Because NEXLife's opening, what it did was it put pressure on the opponent and forced him down certain lanes. But it's an opening. It's not an easy win button. Your openings should serve a purpose for your overarching strategy. And your overarching strategy should be where you win. You say something like, I'm going to get my +1 and +2 attack upgrades really late, and once I'm on 3 bases and taking my 4th, that's what I'm going to work around. And I'm going to try to deny these expansions. That's the strategy part. That's how you should be trying to win. I do not want you to do this 9-pool opening and think to yourself, yeah, I killed off 3 drones, I won. There's a lot of people who are in the chat who, when they saw NEXLife get those Zerglings in there and kill off those drones, they were like, well, he's got it easy. We clearly see that he doesn't have it easy. In fact, we see that Blue is actually able to pull quite a strong response to that. However, his responses are so predetermined that it makes it easier for NEXLife to play against. Not in a way that will help him get a higher win percentage, but there's less ambiguity for NEXLife. So he is going to be doing this little counterattack. Picks off the queen, that's good. It looks like he's picking off some drones. Don't be scared, once again. If you have like a little setup like this, to have these guys hotkeyed as control 1, and these guys hotkeyed as control 2, so that way, when you're running all of them, you can go 1 click, 2 click. Like 1 click on this drone, 2 click on this drone, so you can kill 2 drones. Because you just all have them as 1, and you're like run, 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 and you click on a drone and pick it off. You can double that efficiency by splitting your things up into 2 groups. Just a suggestion, per usual. Yeah, so you know what? Nice little harassment run. Probably did some damage. But yeah, you know what? As Blue's spending that money, we're seeing that those food counts even up. It is not an easy win button to do that sort of early harassment with that 9 pool. Still a little bummed out to not see that missile attack upgrade going down. That's pretty standardo. Some real funky folk end up getting to +1 armor because they're basically saying, I do not ever want to have Lings kill me no matter what, but these are not Zerglings. So, very wise decision. Now, if we got to this phase in a game, most people would sort of look around and just note, yeah, this looks like your usual Zerg vs. Zerg. Kind of a cool third hatch coming up by Gogol. We don't see that from NEXLife. NEXLife actually has a few more defensive structures up that he hasn't made that much use of. And it looks like the Roach Hydra mix from NEXLife. Yeah, this is usual. They might wonder to themselves, I wonder why there's 2 queens that don't have a hatch and that sort of thing. But I mean, other than that, this is a pretty normal looking thing, because now we've hit the point where it's not the openings anymore. We're all talking about strategy, and that's sort of a good thing. All talking about that sort of thing. Cool. So now you see, as we're 43 minutes into this daily, what a cool way to talk about the difference between opening and strategy. Both of these players opened in wildly different fashions, both wildly different from one another, but also from what most people do in general. But we're seeing something that just looks so normal. That's so normal because these are the good core strategies. Any funky opening should always be followed up by a very reasonable overarching strategy. There's Red's +1 missile attack. There's the evolution chamber. I still absolutely would argue that Red should have gotten that +1 a little earlier. But now let's talk a little bit about these sorts of mid-game strategies. Roaches are amazing against Hydras. Roaches kill Hydras really fast. But if you have your Roaches taking the damage and your Hydras dealing the damage, your Hydras are going to rock those Roaches. So, I mean, Blue obviously doing very smart tactical plays. Obviously doing very, very good sorts of tacticianry. And surrounding everything, and then Red's in a very awkward position. And a lot of people are going to argue, oh my gosh, look at Blue. Is he really going to make a comeback after he lost all those stuff early on? Oh my god, I can't believe he did that. It's not exactly accurate. I would argue that that's actually not true. And it looks like Blue just kind of accidentally left a spine crawler at the absolute worst location on the map, but it's fine. It looks like it ended up getting some use anyways. Probably want to move that there. I don't know, there. I don't know, maybe there. Ooh, wow, that sucks. 55 hit point hatchery. That's going to sting. So it does look like we're seeing our little blue player end up swinging in. There's some very cool Transfuse action coming on. Transfuse is actually a surprisingly awesome ability in these sorts of little rogue fights. It will help you stay alive a touch longer than usual. But as usual, we're seeing the Hydralisks just get eaten alive. So be very, very careful when you make Hydralisks as a player because it's pretty easy for you to bundle. So I spent a good amount of time talking about the mid-games and stuff like that. Or, excuse me, openings and how they dump in. So I want to just spend a brief period of time talking as we rewind, as we end up removing my overlay and pulling back to around this 10-minute mark. I want to come to around this phase in the game. You heard me say that I wasn't the biggest fan of a couple of roaches that got made, probably around the 8-9 minute mark. Where are they? Yeah, it's like these roaches, it's only 10, but you know, and I was like, yeah, it's fine. I mean, this isn't that much of overproduction. But when you really, really want to work out a lot of subtleties and kinks, you kind of just can't. You can't ditch drones. Perhaps the most common way that people lose as Zerg, period, is that they just are not taking long stretches of times to dedicate themselves to drones. Here's a big strategic thing that we're going to see out of Blue. I want you to just watch the way that Blue's base works after those lings end up getting repelled. Alright, so he thinks to himself, alright, I'm going to make some banelings. Nope, can't make it. So here's the hatch coming down. Now look at how long this ends up popping out. Let's actually go to the Goggle Cam. Look at this, drones. Only drones. Only drones for Blue right now. Still making just drones. There's a Spire going down, and look, the Zerglings are poking around. He's still making only drones. I mean, he did get Zergling speed, he did get the Spine Crawler, but hell, just drones, drones, drones. He has the Zerglings here. He's going to be running the Zerglings around, trying to control the watchtowers. Drones, drones, still making drones, still making drones. Still has one queen, making some Mutalisks now, making some Mutalisks. Going to expand, drones. Drones, 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 yes, drones. Very good. Are you sensing a pattern that there's drones going on? I'm noting this because this is a very, very easy example of this Zerg player basically making drones non-stop. He's making drones. He has his Roach Warren. He's getting Roach speed. He was actually making drones there. He was actually getting drones. Alright, so cool. So that's fine. And now it's going to be only roaches. Till the end of time, it's only going to be roaches. And Blue could have made him a little bit earlier because he has his Zerglings here, but these Mutalisks give him a good amount of control. There's going to have to be some Hydralisks which pop out. So this is a very, very good opening. This is a very good opening. This is one of my absolute favorite ways to open. Mutalisks, expand and drones, and speed roach. Such an easy opening to satisfy my mid-game goal of having a lot of roaches and eventually getting some Hydralisks. Because I have this wildly large period where I can make a ton of drones. Or you know what? Even if I see like that he's weak, like maybe he's making too many drones, I can always just build like 10 roaches and push. I mean, I have that flexibility. But I want to weed people out of the idea of, oh yeah, maybe this is a time I could kill. Maybe this is a time I could kill. Maybe that's a time I could kill him. And instead focus on, maybe this is a time I could build drones. Maybe that's a time I could build drones. Right? Because this actually looks very clear from Blue's point of view. This whole idea of making enough drones for the mid-game. This looks so clear. And now he's only going to be making roaches. I mean, the reason it's so clear is because I make drones till time T, and then I make roaches after time T. There you go, right? Like, but if we look at our other buddy, this is the one warning I would have with these sorts of openings. Let's look at the trade-off between drones and units. I mean, just over time. Excuse me, sorry, some of that ice water was trying to get back out. Excuse me, stay down, ice water. Yep, so here's the Zerglings. And then we make drones, right? We come right out the gate making Zerglings. And right after you make the Zerglings, that's your period to make drones. Okay, cool. We're still making drones until we can afford a Roach Warren. And we're going to see some periods. Yeah, he's still making drones. He's still making drones, but you know what? You got to get worried that there are some speed zerglings that could be coming. So you got to make some roaches. Yeah, there's 5, 6 roaches coming out right now. We're not seeing anything, so now I'm starting to say to myself, now could be a really good time to make some drones again. I could really make some drones. If I was feeling really awful, I could make 1 spine crawler and keep the same number of roaches. I don't like making these 4 roaches. These 4 roaches still kind of bother me. And now also feels like a good time to make drones. Okay, good time to make drones. But you're noticing that NEXLife is kind of having this alternation issue. Where OK is going to make drones for a little while, but then he's kind of going to begin committing to some spore crawlers. And he's going to get some of those. Let's see if he ends up making any more units here. He probably will end up getting that Hydralisk Den in a minute. Yeah, okay, cool. Here's the Roach Warren coming down. Here's some drones coming out for red. Again, looking up here. No, you know what? Some more roaches popped out there. Why do we need those 2 more roaches? Oh yeah, look, there's 4 more roaches popping out right now, and a Hydralisk Den. Oh yeah, here's some more drones popping out. Here's some Hydras popping out. I mean, I was really shocked at this point in the replay when I looked at how many drones were here, and then I looked at how many drones were here. I mean, it's just such a stark difference. So, with that in mind, I hope you got a really good sense of just some general ideas of the opening to mid-game schema. And part of a lot of the reason why people just seem to be mystified as to why they get outproduced in those mid-games, a lot of it is the battle for drones and setting up good drone numbers. And once you have 2 players who are very good at getting good drone counts, then a lot more cool things happen strategically, where it's a lot about positioning, when you get those upgrades, where you're looking on the mini-map, getting good timings with your Overseer, contaminates, that sort of thing. But I want to emphasize to a lot of you who, it's what the poker players would call fancy play syndrome. You're a silver gold player, and you see, oh my gosh, a 9 pool, and he ends up, ooh, doing all this wicked stuff, and then he gets some roaches and a fast expand, and you're like, that's wicked, do that sort of thing. You apparently become some sort of British, wicked, The real trap there is that you're looking too much at the fancy build, and it's better to do the, fundamentals, like building a lot of drones. And the reason I say that is not to make you go, Starcraft is actually a really boring game. You can fix these fundamentals in a matter of weeks, really. You can spend 1 week making sure that you watch your minimap better. And 1 week learning a really good hotkey setup. And honestly, I genuinely believe that anyone on the planet could get to Diamond League from not playing at all in about 2 to 3 months, really. And then you have years ahead of you of just deep strategic thinking that's so fun. I just never want anyone to get in that trap where they're like, oh yeah, I keep trying this strategy, it doesn't work, I keep trying that strategy, it doesn't work, keep trying that strategy, it doesn't work, because then you feel trapped, you feel like nothing works, and you feel like there's one build that you're allowed to do. I cannot tell you how many times I get the comments, oh, there's only one way to play, and I'm gonna kill my family! And I'm like, no, just build drones. And they're like, I love my family so much, I cook them dinner. Let's take some questions. And Parasite01, I'll take your question. Yeah. Parasite01, who, by the way, suggests I do a Zerg vs. Zerg today. So I did. Yeah, Parasite01. If you all ask awesome questions every day, your wish is more likely to come true. Dear Day 9, although Blue won, do you believe Blue should have went for an expansion instead of mutas, which turned out to be marginally ineffective? Seeing that Red was blocking his ramp, indicating he was most likely droning and taking slower. And Blue should also go for a later but higher muta count to snipe more drones and then transition to roaches like he did. So Parasite is asking that, he's saying that the mutas, they incidentally worked, but were they optimal? I actually think that the mutalisks were an amazing choice. And I'm a little biased because I do this like a hell of a lot in this matchup, because it's just so effective. This is one of those things that is very, very, very much so in addiction to like a lot of veteran type players who just want map control. They don't actually want to do damage. They just want the map control, and that is an invaluable resource. Mutalisk coming out. I want you to, we're gonna pause a couple times as we watch these Mutalisks harass. We're gonna pause a couple times. Alright, so there the Mutalisks come out. There's a little bit of the damage they did. Let's look at the direct damage that these Mutalisks did. The direct damage, right? What did they kill? And as we're thinking about that, I want you to look at the mini-map. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go to the every person cam. Oh, harassment over here, harassment over here. All right, cool. All right, he gets pulled back. Maybe he killed 1-2 drones. These roaches, for the record, could never go attack this because there's Mutulus out there. And blue is almost having a roach warren, right? Like, so in a sense, look at this. These Mutulus aren't really doing much direct damage, but they are keeping red so pinned. They're so pinned. There's like, what, another one? Oh, and he lost a Mutulus. So he's killed like 3 drones and an Overlord at the price of 1 Mutulus. Oh, there's another drone. Very little damage directly. In an indirect sense, oh my gosh, he made him make spore crawlers. Here's an evolution chamber not researching. There's a spore crawler that he made. There's a Hydralis den that's coming out a little bit earlier than red would ordinarily want. Oh yeah, look, he even lost an Overlord. No problem, look at all the drones he got to build. So yeah, I love that. I actually think that if blue went for a little bit earlier of an expansion, red can do a pretty much straight-up roach push, and it's hard to deal with. Because keep in mind, if you do an early expansion, you can't really make units to defend it and make drones to make use of it. Because that's what our opening forced on our opponent. He could make units, or he could expand, or he could do a whole bunch of tech-related stuff. He can't really make a big-ass army that will threaten you and expand and make a bunch of drones. He only has 12 drones after your initial 9 pool. You've restricted him in a very cool fashion. So you know what? I like that Muta play. Yeah, let's see here. We've been going for 55 minutes. Let's take 2 more questions. Jimmy McAwesome says, Day 9, if blue didn't get the flank on red's Roach Hydra army, do you think the outcome would have been the same, or would red have won? Let's go ahead and take a look at exactly what moment Jimmy McAwesome is referring to. It's this moment coming right up here, when red swoops down along this lane, and all these guys swing around the backside. Now, what I want to note is that right now, looks like they're about even in terms of those unit counts, right? About even. But I think that blue's been mining at a higher rate throughout the game, so he just has a little bit stronger of a force. I mean, look at blue having 36 roaches. That's just such a huge amount of roaches. I mean, things like these queens are kind of like dead weight at the back. That's like 8 food that can't quite be used in the army. You know, I think it actually still could have been close. I think the game was close enough. I think this was the key moment where red really did. It was like a clear, yeah, you're done, son moment. You know, it's like, ugh, yeah, that was went ugly. Ugh, I'm terribly sorry for your loss. But you know, at the same time, you know, I try not to focus as much on the battle until I'm very confident that all the other pieces are fitting together properly. Just because, again, I don't want to get to the point where I'm like, no strategies work and I always lose. You know, I want to be like, here's a good strategy, and I always feel like I could do a little better. I think that red probably could have taken his third a little faster and maybe done a little more aggressive creep spreading, because your queens can always be right at the edge of the creep and keep the Mutulus off those creep tumors. Let us take one more question. Oh yeah, kinda. Who's saying, do you think he could have taken a third better? Yeah, totally, man. Ah, I'm so glad you said so. Alright, so I'll actually take one more thing. Let us see here. Lane Bing. It says, Dear Day 9, it is amazing that blue won that game because he expanded so late compared to his opponent. Was that based solely on red's lack of macro ability? It seemed macro won that game for blue. It is all about the drone timing. So the way I'm going to explain this is I'm going to think of the extreme example. Let's say I'm a Zerg player, and I take my first, second, and third expansions before I really do anything. Right? So I go like hatch, pool, gas, hatch. Right? So I basically get Zergling speed and some Zerglings, but I have 4 bases really, really fast. As you will note, 4 bases on any map is really spread out and very hard to defend, and was a lot of money. When you see 4 bases, in a sense, I don't actually have 4 bases until I have like 20 drones plus at each of those. It's going to take a long time to get up. So, you know, even though red finished his expansion early, he just didn't really have that many drones mining on it. So, what we actually ended up seeing is a huge increase in the drone count for blue. It's the worker count that ends up being the significant thing to note. Red could have had a higher production rate of drones because he got 2 hatches earlier, but he was under so much pressure that he was forced to not make drones. That's a really important lesson to note in any matchup. Anytime someone seems to be expanding aggressively, you can poke and prod and push, and they won't really be able to make huge production uses of their expansions. Let's actually just go to the unit counting station and just look at the drone counts as we go to ×8. Let's even do my favorite thing, go to the corner and just look at the drone counts. We see here's the moment where Red was getting the chance to get a little bit ahead. We see the drone counts getting to 23, and there's the expansion going down for Red. But look at the drone count of Blue. Look at that drone count just soar ahead. I mean, the roach count is really high for Red. It's very, very, very high because he's feeling worried. He's feeling nervous like he has to defend. But as we speed right along, look at the drone count. So in a sense, what Blue is thinking is, it doesn't matter that he got his expansion up late. I can put so much pressure on him that I will have a better economy the whole time. Look at that, up at 46 drones, 48 drones. Phenomenally better economy overall. And I never even once looked down here to see who took what expansion first. I was just looking up here. And now for once it looks like Red evened up the score a little bit by muscling his way in there. But you know what? Still mostly minerals being mined for Blue. Blue has a very lean base. He didn't spend minerals on this. He didn't spend minerals on this. He didn't spend extra minerals on these queens. He's not getting these extra gas geysers to support these hydras. All roaches all the time, getting extra hatches. Very, very clear, clean, focused. That wraps up today's Day 9 Daily. For Fun Day Monday, it's going to be a little bit of an improv cast where I'm going to be casting some games, but what you're going to do is you're going to be submitting funny ways for me to be talking or constrictions you'd like to impose on me while I cast. Be as creative as you want. Admins and I will sort of mull it down to a list of, 50 to 100 of them, and then every 5 minutes, the admins will impose a different constraint on me, which I will read aloud, and hopefully we'll have a good bit of fun. For Newbie Tuesday, I'm actually planning a lesson where I will be playing, and I'm going to demonstrate a lot of the unspoken things to focus on, such as how you're holding your hand, your mouse, stretches to do beforehand. But a lot of how the screen is managed and how you should use the interface properly to optimize. So that's going to be on Newbie Tuesday. With that, I'm done. Go to shortyawards.com and vote for me. There's like 2 days left of voting. If you voted, you can't vote again. You can only vote once. The Shorty Award folks actually contacted me and said, your audience is very passionate, some of which have voted 100 times, but it only counts once, so just let them know. And I was like, whoopsie daisies, I guess I neglected to mention that. So I'd be delighted if you did as such, because if I win, I get a piece of glass that says Shorty Awards, and I get to give a speech to all sorts of people more important than I am. Yes, about why esports is amazing. So, without any further ado, peace out. I'm going to eat a burrito. Bye-bye.